Are you waiting for the apocalypse? Do you believe that at any minute the end of the world can come? I'm David Thompson. Thanks for joining me. I am a guy that is interested in the end of the world. I enjoyed this type of theme since I was a child. Now, speaking about the end of the world, it's nothing new. It's been happening for centuries, for decades, and will not stop tomorrow. Now, as people prepare for New Year's Eve, everybody has the same perspective. It's a new year. It's going to be a new time. They will put diapers on and go to Times Square and pee their pants and wait for the ball to drop and think somehow that's fun. Others will get drunk. Others will go outside and shoot their guns off at midnight. Then others start dreaming of maybe this is the year the world will end. Is it? Now, as a Christian, I do believe that at some point this world will end. Now, here's the difference. Some believe the end of the world will be totally cataclysmic. No one will survive. Others believe, like watching The Walking Dead, there will be a remnant of people that have to survive and carry on civilization. Others believe, like Christians, that there will be a rapture, and the Christians who believe in Jesus Christ will be snatched away. There's variations of this. Others, like me, also believe that we'll have an apocalypse, but it'll be a specific apocalypse. It'll be the end of the world as we know it right now. I'm inclined to believe that. Now, as a Christian, I do believe that God can come back and take his church away. There's a lot of controversy over that. I'll be honest with you, I don't spend hardly any time on it. I'm confused many times because there's conflicting evidence in Scripture about what this really means. Otherwise, I say that if I'm ready and Jesus wants to come and take me, take me. Other than that, he's given me a job here to do on this earth with my family and friends and other tasks he may set before me. If I've got my head worried about the apocalypse and when God's going to come and take me any minute now, and there are sites on YouTube that drive me crazy, good people. Every day it's the day of the apocalypse. Every day it's the day of the rapture. And they put all these events together. And they make this case that, yeah, it's right now. It's right now. But you know what? We have a job. And believe me, if God doesn't want me doing the job I'm doing today with my family and friends and what he set before me, I'd be gone. Don't spend your time worried about that stuff. There shouldn't be topics talked about this anywhere. This should be known to you that you're ready, and if you belong to Jesus Christ, you'll be raptured. Other than that, there's more important things to worry about here on earth. And it is a beautiful earth, in spite of what people tell you. Many people will tell you how horrible it is, and everybody's out to get you, and all these things are happening, but that's not necessarily true either. Let's now take a step back here today on the Thompson Analysis, and I'm going to give you some ideas. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things I see that are relevant, that are real, that we can deal with right now, physically, that we should be able to prepare for, either individually or in groups. Now, honestly, I'm not really the type of person that's going to dig a bunker and put my head in it, okay? First of all, I don't have that type of money. And second of all, I don't know that that's going to help much in many of these situations. You still need a society around you. You still need a group around you. Those people that go out and say, I'm going to go in the woods and hunt deer. Me and my family will survive off the grid. Good luck with that. Because many experts and many survival people I've talked to said that's very difficult because you need people. In your spirit, you need people. Plus, if there are other groups that are hunting and fishing, how long can those resources last in that area? Unless you have a massive store of preparation of items, you're not going to last too long. Okay, so now many of you might say, well, Dave, do you really believe in apocalypse? You don't? What are you talking about? I do. It has not been canceled, like many people, are hoping it is. And we're not going to worry about things that we can't be prepared for in our own self. We shouldn't worry about those things because if you can't deal with them, you're done anyway. If massive groups come down to your neighborhood, the chances of you surviving, if they're out to destroy and pillage your area and you're not prepared to defend yourself, you're done. There's nothing you can do anyway. So let's just go down some of those problems. I have three that I believe that we should kind of look at that could possibly trigger this apocalypse. Now, when I say apocalypse, I'm saying a change. I'm saying the change is in the way we live today. The change of things that we're used to that will be totally different that next morning after this apocalypse occurs. Okay, so let me analyze these three. Okay, number one, first of all the right-wingers that have been complaining to me because I have sort of hammered Donald Trump. I'm sorry. This is not personal. I'm giving you responses based on a lot of research, my understanding, things I know, things that people have told me in confidence from a wide variety of sources. And a lot of folks have one source. The guy that told them that everything's going to be fine. The prophet or prophetesses on these video channels that are saying it's going to be this banner year. All these things are going to happen. And I measure this not by just your group prospering, but I'm measuring what's going to happen by the country itself and then the globe. Okay? And my prognosis isn't positive because most people don't care about anybody but the group they're in. So if you listen to these people, be wary, understand that the things I'm going to tell you are real. They're calculated out. I've analyzed them. Others have analyzed them. Economically, I have really looked into this stuff. So let's start there. Number one, the Trump presidency and the effect on the economy and politics that his presidency will influence. Now, I know people are going to get mad. Oh, Donald Trump again. Understand something. Those of you that maybe don't. Donald Trump is an unusual candidate. Everybody talks about that as a positive thing. He's different. Right. So what many believe is, and these prophets and prophetesses believe, is that he's going to change America and make America great again because he's sanctioned by God to do what he needs to do. But what we have to understand is this isn't ancient times. You can't just make a king and then it works for the whole kingdom. Our kingdom isn't a kingdom. It's a political grouping of people that have different feelings, levels, jobs, social, economic statuses. One size will not fit all. In fact, some of the changes he wants to make can be devastating, and I'm going to go down that. Now, his proposed economic agenda will send a tremor through the United States and eventually throughout Europe and the globe. Tariffs right off the bat. He's promising tariffs on, I'm guessing, January 21st. I'm not sure he'll do anything on the 20th. Who knows? So these tariffs, he started with Mexico, Canada. He's even said he's going to tariff Europe and, of course, China, the BRICS nations who China's a part of. These things can be maybe benign. Maybe they'll just push back, and things will change. Who knows? It could be just a ploy, making the deal. But they can also set before us a trade war, a very vicious trade war amongst the nations of the world. All of them against the United States by default, because by default we're sanctioning everybody. Okay? So that could send prices spiraling upward and cause a whole list of other things. Understand people who think one size fits all, a king and going to fix it for all the kingdom. That's not true. We have, like I said, different people with different skin in the game in this country. And that ripple effect, those dominoes will not just fall in one direction. Those dominoes will fall in every direction. And once they do, there's no stopping them. Understand. They're going to have cuts to the government itself. Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk want to cut the government, proposed 75%. Whether that happens or not is another story. This is to people, agencies within the government. This itself could start a ripple effect across the country. We don't know what effects this will have. They'll be negative because we want to cut dollars. Listen, dollars and cutting dollars isn't going to save the United States. I got bad news for you. Economically, everybody who preaches that is crazy. Okay? Why? Because you need dollars to run the country. You need debt to run the country. I've said this on my last video. There's no real way of pulling out of this without crashing and burning. Okay? So, right off the bat, when you start making these adjustments, you adjust one thing and 5 other things go out of balance, go out of adjustment. This is the fear that many have. This is the fear I would have. Okay? Deportation of millions of migrants. Right off the bat, I was told the other day that they need to go, that there's all these massive numbers of terrorists coming into the country. We'll talk about that a little more later. And they need to go. Now, what this person doesn't understand is, okay, who's the terrorist and who's people that are working here keeping our country going? This is a fine line. Obviously, most of these, between 12 and 24 million, or whatever the number is that they want to deport, most of these people are not terrorists. They're not rapists. They're not X, Y, and Z. Understand, these people are probably just working here, many of them. And many of them have been here a long time. How do you just pull them out of an economy that needs them to produce? Production is what economies are all about. See, America isn't a production economy anymore. It's been financialized. We buy and sell things. But the people that we need to actually do some of that manufacturing, once they're pulled out of here, like a Jenga game, once you pull that wrong block out from below, it topples over. This can be devastating to the American economy, and it will be. Most economists, and myself included, believe that depending on how many you deport, it's between, if you deport 3 to 6 million, I believe that's going to be a drop in our GDP by about 2% or more. That's our production. That's our domestic production. Who's going to farm? Who's going to do some of these manual labor jobs? We don't have the people. Watch my last video. That'll explain a lot of that. Okay, that's number one. Number two, let's just talk about wars. America's been in wars pretty much continuously since World War II, one form or another, under every president. And I know people disagree with that. Donald Trump didn't start any wars. No, he just perpetuated the ones that were there. But I digress. Okay, so right now we have wars in Ukraine and the Middle East right off the bat. And Donald Trump promised to fix the war in Ukraine and solve it. Most people believe that that is not going to happen. There is no real way to stop the war unless you acquiesce to Vladimir Putin and Russia's demands. And they have the upper hand. And those demands, the United States and its allies right now refuse to agree to. They will not do it. I've said this in a video back when I was dealing with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. If they became president, one or the other, would it really matter on many of these issues? And it won't. Donald Trump would probably want to pull out of Ukraine because he wants to use that money elsewhere, most likely against China and in the Middle East against Iran. It's my opinion. But this isn't going to be an easy war to get out of because Russia wants all 4 Russian-speaking territories to be under Russian control. They will not stop fighting until every square mile of those 4 oblasts are taken over by Russian soldiers. Why? Because under Russian law, those 4 oblasts were voted in to be part of Russia. So by law, they cannot stop fighting until all that is liberated. That's that. That doesn't count all the other issues associated with this war, which is NATO not being involved in Ukraine ever, which means no military presence in Ukraine. There's a whole list of issues that the Russians have that America right now, nor Donald Trump, wants to agree to. What happens from here? Your guess is as good as mine. But it isn't going to be easy to stop the war in Ukraine. Middle East, we got problems. Now, Syria was just overthrown with military help from America and Israel. This is part of the plan to destabilize all the governments in the Middle East. This is a Netanyahu plan from Israel. He wanted to destabilize and take control of more and more land, to have more land for settlements. This was his ultimate plan. That's why you'll never see a two-state solution. That was always a pie in the sky. It was always just a fake, a feint, to make people believe that there was going to be a settlement. There won't be. What's happening from here? Well, the big target is next Iran and Yemen, because they are the last two standing countries that stand in the way of American dominance in the Middle East and Israel being able to take over more and more land. So there has to be eventually a war with Iran. I'm not sure what Donald Trump's going to do. He's claiming he's going to solve the problem, but he does have a lot of influence in Israel, and Israel has a lot of influence over Donald Trump. My assumption here is that we will somehow get involved with some kind of attack on Iran. Now, this could draw in both China and Russia and could be a very big problem. Again, either of these two wars, if escalated, can be devastating to our economy. They can also be a blow to our hegemony in the world. Again, America's dominance relies on the dollar and its military. If we lose that war in Ukraine, then most of the world will then lose respect for us, because we have guaranteed to help Ukraine win against these terrible Russians. American hegemony is already failing. This will be another devastating blow. So the next one is China. We are already escalating in China. Part of that escalation are tariffs, right? Tariffs against China. We've already been tariffing them for quite a while, but it's going to increase. What else is going to happen? We are now providing more and more arms to Taiwan in their disagreement, their fight with China. Now remember, according to China, Taiwan belongs to them, and the United States agreed to this under President Nixon, that China still has ruling factors over Taiwan, that Taiwan is a part of China. We claim we admit that and agree to that, at least that's what Biden said, but I'm not sure that's going to hold, because once again, China is the main enemy that America wants to take down, wants to destroy. So Russia, China, and Iran are those three enemies. Notice we're at war technically with all three. So what happens from here? Again, I don't know. There's a lot of decisions that have to be made, and that is all fluid. In all three of these theaters of war, it's fluid, depending on who gets last say, depending on who wants to escalate, depending on if there's a mistake made and it's escalated without even us trying. Again, a war with China will be devastating to the American economy. Devastating. It's a war that most analysts believe we cannot win. Okay, number three. Number three is more internal. Political anarchy, civil unrest, massive immigrant deportations, and terrorist attacks can cause a whole host of problems for the United States, and will, of course, be detrimental to our way of life as we see it today. Now, political unrest, number one, is already mounting. We already see that. With the election of Donald Trump, again, not a political statement, many people, even ones who voted for him, are fearing some of the things he wants to do. Very radical things I mentioned in the past that can really cause us a problem, not just within our country, but globally. We'll see January 21st if he begins doing some of the things he promised to do. Now, political unrest is one thing, but we also have civil unrest. Now, when I talk about civil unrest, it is different to me than political unrest. It sort of caps on top of that, okay? So this is a problem, because what we're seeing right now is a bigger and bigger divide between the rich and the poor. Again, Trump's mistake of being the billionaire's buddy, bringing in billionaires into his cabinet, bringing in billionaires to cut the jobs of people who are pretty much middle class or below middle class, not a good idea. The tax cuts that Donald Trump performed in basically 2017 and the ones he wants to do in 2025 and 2026 will be a big boost to the billionaire class. They will get big tax cuts paid for by you and me. This will divide the country more. Again, these things, if let go, if get to a point where you have mass unemployment, where you have mass price increases, which many predict because of the tariffs, this can cause civil unrest. This can cause people going and taking to the streets in protest. Okay, terrorist attack. Now, this is a lot of right-wing people's big fear, because everybody's a terrorist. I have to say, I've said this in every video, not everybody's a terrorist. Your version of terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. When you're dealing with tyranny, here in this country, it won't be any different, like it was in 1776. Now, keep in mind, there are terrorist groups in our country. I believe that. I believe that many did come across the border. We have not seen really any reactions from them so far. So this leads me to believe that maybe this isn't as serious as a threat as we thought, but I still keep it on the list. But if we go to war with Russia, with China, and with Iran, and indirectly other nations like Yemen, that can change. Terrorist attacks can begin by cells they may already have put together or cells they will put together as part of that war against the United States. So us being at war physically, not just sending arms, not just proxy wars, but us actually being involved with American troops fighting could cause these terrorist cells to activate, and us here in the United States facing major terrorist attacks. Now, we also got to fear that if the government itself and the economy collapses or starts to crumble, or people lose confidence in the government, you can start seeing many of our own homegrown terrorists take to the streets. And of course, these people would be people like white supremacists and many of these groups associated with Christian nationalists. You will see these people start taking control. You will see these people start going after those that opposed Donald Trump, those that oppose these right-wing agendas, those of people of color, those immigrants. These people can be targeted by these groups. These are terrifying to me because we would not technically believe that somebody standing next to you could be a homegrown terrorist. Okay, so terrorism can happen at any time here. Again, nobody knows. Everybody believes one thing they've heard. I'm tired of many Christian friends of mine talking about all these groups and everybody's out to get them. Everybody's out to kill Christians. And yet, in the Middle East, the people protecting the Christians were Iranians. Iran was and Syria, Assad of Syria were protecting Christians. And guess who then foiled that? Yeah, the people, the terrorists we helped overthrow Assad are killing Christians as we speak. So stop pointing at people who you have no clue hate you. And that's your own government who's willing to do whatever it takes to get their way and don't care about Christians anywhere in this world. They'll allow these terrorist groups to kill them and murder them for their own purposes. And that's what's happened in the Middle East. It's not the people you think that were after Christians. I had to say that. I digressed a little bit. Outside of that, folks, the new year's coming quickly, and I'm not sure what to predict, what to expect. Things are in fluid motion now. It depends on Donald Trump. It depends on his reactions to events in the world. He shoots from the hip, and many times that's never a good idea. It depends on our European allies and what's happening in these hotspots around the world. And of course, our economy is fragile. It is fragile. Remember, the veneer of society is fragile. And it doesn't take much for that to crack. That's why I'm a firm believer that the end of the world as we know it can happen at any minute. But remember, Jesus is the reason for this season, and Jesus Christ knows exactly what's going to happen. And he's going to push his agenda along. In spite of anything else, his job is to protect his people. Just remember that. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. I'm going to be filming some videos through the holiday. I don't know how many. Just keep an eye out for them because I'm going to be pretty active here with some other things. Maybe have a live stream on New Year's Eve. Just saying. And hopefully we'll get some more information on what's happening around the world As soon as I get it, you'll have it. So God bless you, and I'll see you next time on the world's best YouTube channel for news, information, and analysis and commentary, the Tomsic Analysis. God bless you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you for watching the Tomsic Analysis. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share this video, and keep an eye out for our next video.